All right, so for the sake of the video that just started, you are looking at the introduction to the overview for energy consumption. You're looking at the vocabulary words, and we'll watch the video together as soon as I finish attendance. Okie dokie. Okay. All right, so again, we're going to be talking about energy consumption. We've been talking about, up to now, we've been talking about succession and um, energy relationships, not energy relationships, but ecological relationships. And so now we're going to look at how energy is passed through an ecosystem. Okay. We're going to talk about food webs and food chains, and you have to know the difference between them, and discuss that sun, and this is one of the things you're going to have to remember for everything. The sun is the original source of energy. Now, we don't, we stand outside and it makes us warm, but that's not how we get our energy. We are actually consumers. We have to consume the energy that is stored in other organisms, plants and animals, in order to get the sun's energy. So that's what we'll be looking at, the different forms of energy. So let's look at this one first. It's kind of an introduction.
Throughout human history, access to energy resources often meant the difference between health and health, poverty and wealth, and illiteracy and education. So it's not surprising that today, the world's energy use is growing even faster than its population. Global energy consumption has doubled since the early 1970s, and experts predict it will expand another 50% by 2035. Unfortunately, this rising demand poses a couple of major problems. The first is that most of the energy sources we rely on today won't last forever. Coal, oil, and natural gas supply about 80% of the energy we currently use. And while these fuels continue to form through natural processes, we're using them much faster than they're being created. In the US alone, we burn more than 100,000 tons of coal and nearly 800,000 barrels of oil every hour. So unless we develop large-scale alternatives, when these fuel sources run out, our power supply will run out too. If that weren't enough, burning fossil fuels releases a lot of carbon into the atmosphere, mostly in the form of carbon dioxide. And all the CO2 is affecting Earth's climate. Carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases gases build up in the atmosphere. As they do, they act like insulating layers, allowing sunlight to pass through to Earth's surface while slowing the release of heat back into space. The more CO2 in our atmosphere, the warmer our planet becomes. And this will affect everything from sea levels and ocean currents to weather patterns and seasons, leading to more natural disasters and potential food shortages in our future. These problems of skyrocketing energy demand, dwindling resources, and increasing environmental consequences are very real. And scientists agree it's not a question of if, but when these problems will catch up with us. So the race is on to find new energy sources and innovative technologies. It's our best hope for a sustainable future.
Okay, somebody said you couldn't hear. Was there a way for you to watch it yourself rather than listening to it on my side? And it was just an overview, so you can go back and watch that on your own later on, and so that you can hear better. Okay. But she just basically gave an overview of why we're going to be looking at energy consumption. One of the things we did earlier in the year, where we looked at our ecological footprint, and we looked at how we use the energy sources and how fast we as an individual are consuming the energy that's available on the planet. So you might want to we might take a look back at that later on as well. So again, what we're going to look at is energy consumption. We're going to look at the terms specifically renewable and non-renewable resources. So she touched on that, the fact that, and again, conservation of matter. Everything that is on the planet is on the planet. We're not creating anything new. So we have to recycle things. The air is being recycled all the time. So we're not making new air. We're polluting the air, but we're not making new air. And so we just keep recycling the nutrients over and over again. But how we're doing it, sometimes we use it faster than it can be replaced. So this is where we're running into problems. So we're going to touch on all of these vocabulary words as we go along. So let's look at the first one. Let me make sure it's published. I think I've published all of them, but let me know if it's not published for you. But we want to look at how we use energy. So again, we kind of looked at this a little bit when you did your ecological footprint, but now we're going to get a little deeper. All right. This one's a little louder, so maybe you can hear it better than the last one. Oh, it's not louder. You're going to have to read. Music is loud. So it's like your McDonald's Happy Meal. Okay. So basically, they're looking at, we have a tendency to just think about um, the energy we need, as far as we need energy to get up out the bed in the morning, to get to your computer so that you can do your classes. But your computer also needs energy, your refrigerator needs energy. And these are different types of energy, and everything has a different energy source. So we're going to look at that. We're also going to look at the unit for energy. The unit for energy is a kilocalorie. All right, so they're just saying you as a human being need only need 2,000 kilocalories per day in order to do what you need to do. So, which is why when you go on these diets and they want you to count calories, they look at, are you taking in more calories than you actually need? Or if you're not, if you're trying to bodybuild, you might want to look at increasing the number of calories you take in. But this is your baseline number here. So keep that number in mind because it'll come up again. But that's how many calories you need for reproduction and your life processes of reproduction, growth, metabolism. Um, we have an expression called Miss Grin. Ms. Grin is an acronym for all of the life processes that you need to have. Let me see if I can pull that up real quick. Um, no, I can't because can't put, but I'll pull it up for next class. But you need to know what those processes are. All right, so um, this is what you need to understand about this paragraph. So we're going to look at the different forms of energy. And you might have had this because it's not your first science class. If you had physical science, you talked about chemical energy, light energy, mechanical energy. There's about 7 different types of energy, solar energy. So all of these are used for different things, electrical energy. So let's look at these 3. So write these categories down for starters. And then when you click, because you need to do this, when you click on the question mark, it opens up a window. So write the heading fuel, food energy, and look at the fact that you need energy, food energy as fuel for your body. And actually, while you do that, let me see if I can't pull this. I'm gonna stop sharing for a minute while I search for this. The system shut down, so I have to reload all my pages and they make you sign back into everything. Okay. All right. Take a minute to write this down. So the acronym is Ms. Grin. And what it stands for are all of the things that we need energy for. If to be a human being, you have to do all of these things. So you have to be able to move, carry out respiration, respond to your environment, which is sensitivity. You have to grow, uh, reproduce, excrete waste, and eat, get nutrition. So write this down. These are all the life functions that make you a living thing. All living things must be able to do these things, or they're not classified as a living thing. And all of these functions require energy. So when you are eating, this is why you're eating, in order that you can maintain all of these functions. And again, if you write it as Ms. Grin, then you have the first letter for each function. All right, so people tend to think about eating as we eat just because food tastes good. We eat because we need energy. And if you notice when you're really hungry, some of these systems don't work very well. You get really tired. That's because these systems need energy in order to maintain you, and you're not supplying the body with energy to do that. All right, anybody still writing this? I'm going to change pages. All right, so we're going back to Canvas. I need to. Always more than one way to skin a cat. All right, so we need energy that comes from the food that we eat. What we also need to make sure that you write down is that energy is stored, and this is important, energy is stored in the bonds of an ATP molecule. ATP is your energy molecule. It stands for adenosine triphosphate. And that triphosphate, there are three phosphate molecules that are linked together by a chemical bond, and they are so strong that when you break one, it releases the energy that you need for most of your body functions, for all of your body functions. Okay, so be aware that energy is stored in the bonds of an ATP molecule. So you'll be asked, where do you get your energy from? The ATP molecule. Okay. All right, let's close that one. Let's look at solar energy. All right, so write solar energy as a heading. The only organisms that can capture sunlight energy are plants. Sunlight energy is stored in plants. They do this by the process of photosynthesis. Okay, so in short, if you had to define photosynthesis, it is the process by which green plants store sunlight energy. So make sure you write that down. So what it's showing you here is that there's carbon dioxide in the air. The leaves take it in, and they take in the sunlight, and they take, actually it's not showing you, but they also take up water from the roots. And between the carbon dioxide and the water, they change all those molecules around. They create glucose, which is stored in the plant, which is the food that we eventually eat. So that's stored in the plant, and oxygen is released back into the atmosphere. So this diagram is kind of a sketchy diagram. It's not really giving you all the information, because what we actually need to know about this diagram is that this process of photosynthesis creates glucose, and that's the molecule that is storing the energy. So then the plant needs energy. It gets it from breaking down glucose. So one of the misconceptions is that plants do photosynthesis and animals do respiration. Plants do both. They make the food, and then they use the food for respiration so that they can go through their energy processes. But the energy is stored in the bonds of the glucose molecule, or the food that it makes for itself. And then we get our energy because we eat the plant, or we eat the animal that ate the plant. So we're getting the stored energy from the sun by the things that we eat. Okay, and let's look at this last one. All right, so in addition to food being fuel for us, there are different types of fuel that we get from gasoline or petroleum products. So we have thermal energy, we have mechanical energy because we frequently need gasoline to run our machines, and we have electrical energy, which many times is fueled by fossil fuels. However, you can take a lot of these other energies to create electricity. So again, I don't know if you remember when you were in physical science in the earlier grade. Um, so what is that? I had a friend to tell me to, I don't know. That's interesting. I'm reading the chat. They said someone told them to photosynthesize. Was he telling you to grow? I They might not have been using the term correctly, because if they told you to photosynthesize, it probably meant that you need to get some energy or something like that. Because the whole I can't really say answer that question because you had to know the context that they made the comment in. But if somebody told you to photosynthesize, you can't do that because you don't have chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is necessary enzyme to do that. And secondly, the whole point of doing photosynthesis is to make glucose. Or so I imagine that they were talking about get some energy. I don't know. Sorry, Amani, can't help you with that one. That's my take on it. I had to know why they said that in order to answer that correctly.
No, he was making fun of me because I was short, right? So he was like, "You need to go stand outside. You need to photosynthesize or something." I'm like, "Oh, all right."
And then next time you see them, they said photosynthesis is not what's going to help me grow. Okay. But thank you for that. Okay, so we need the so again, the gasoline is a fuel source and it is going to be used, and we will look at different ways. And again, I don't know how much of that you went into in your earlier grades where you went through the different types of energy, but there's a different kind of energy plant. And depending on the fuel source, you're all going to be used. If you're going to make thermal energy, you can use you can use thermal energy to create electricity. You can use nuclear energy to create electricity, mechanical energy. All of these can be used to make electricity. So another term that you need to know is kinetic energy and potential energy. So kinetic energy is the energy of a moving object. Potential energy is when it is usually sitting still. It hasn't lost any energy, but it's stored. So you have the potential to move and release energy, but you're not doing it at the time. So they're adding kinetic energy and potential energy together in order to, there's a formula for mechanical energy. So it is the sum of the kinetic and potential energy that an object used to do work. And then again, that's another word. Scientifically speaking, work is defined as something, the ability to create movement. Okay. So you are working because you're moving your pencil. All right. So hopefully you wrote those examples down. Okay. So let's look at this. All right, one of the things that she mentioned in the video, and you need to write down renewable and non-renewable energy. We need to define these. You need to know what is renewable and what sources are renewable and what sources are not. Okay, so look down here to the bottom. So, and they've shortened the answer for you. Energy source that is inexhaustible, which means it's not going to run out. Solar energy, the sun is not going to run out. The wind is not going to run out, but we can't use wind energy everywhere because it's not enough. But the wind blows all the time. The wind was blowing real strong last night because it was kind of stormy. And geothermal energy, the energy that comes from the center of the earth, that's not going to run out. On the other hand, we have non-renewable sources, and those are the ones that they says exhaustible. That means they will run out. So you have fossil fuels, and we get those are things that we dig up out of the ground, and there's only so much in the ground. So once you dig it up, it's not growing back. Nuclear energy, there are certain nuclear atoms and molecules that are in the earth. Once we mine them up, they're not going to grow back. And the oil basically comes from fossil fuels, so the same thing with the oil. The oil that we have buried now is a limited source. Now, things are still dying and creating fossils, but they're not dying with the amount that you need to build up the fuel source that we need as an energy source. So we say it's non-renewable because it can't be replaced fast enough to help us. Okay, so write those two definitions down. And I'm going to pull this up and we'll watch this one.
Energy comes in many different forms. It can be stored in the chemical bonds that hold molecules together, carried in the motion of a spinning wheel, or held in a boulder sitting on a cliff. But energy isn't a fixed state.
Chemical energy.
In fact, we convert it from one form to another all the time. People discovered energy conversion thousands of years ago. While they couldn't have possibly known what they were doing, when early humans burned wood to stay warm, they were actually converting the chemical energy stored in the wood into the heat and light of fire. And wood was just the beginning. Chemical energy is also stored in coal, oil, natural gas, and radioactive materials. And these fuels have been critical to the development of modern human society. Fuels are used to generate three main forms of energy: thermal energy to heat our homes, mechanical energy to transport people and things, and electrical energy to power just about every other technology we use, from computers to vacuums to air conditioners. The basic process and technology for producing most of our electricity is the same, whether it's generated by a coal-burning power plant, a nuclear plant, or a renewable resource. In nearly all cases, one form of energy is converted into motion or kinetic energy by means of the spinning blades of a turbine. The turbine's rotation is then used to turn the working parts of an electrical generator. This motion causes electrons to be pushed through the wires inside the generator, converting kinetic energy into electrical energy, the electricity that is carried through power lines to our homes and schools. The only real difference between one type of power plant and another is the energy source or fuel that's used to turn the generator. Now, as some of the traditional energy sources are becoming harder to find and come with a high environmental cost, scientists and engineers are looking for more innovative ways to produce the electricity we rely on.
Okay. So again, we are looking for energy alternatives. All right, so let's look at this. All right, take a few minutes to go through this activity. After you finish one page, go to the next page. And again, this right here is similar to what you did with your ecological footprint. All right, so on the first one, while they all consume, notice that they were in groups of three, so there was one correct answer. The one that consumes the most in our modern societies are heating, and you might as well add air conditioning with that. Transportation, because we use a lot of fuel, but there's more cars on the road than ever before. And electrical generation, well, this is where you'll get your air conditioning. Now, with this summer, if you check with your parents, their air conditioning bill was higher than ever because it was one of the hottest summers ever. So we have used a lot of electrical energy this summer alone, and probably will use a lot for heating later on. But a lot of heating is not just for what we do in the wintertime. Um, a lot of the activities, industrial activities that we do now require heating. And if we have a better storage mediums. Yes, yes, this is true. Isaiah said if we are better at storing solar energy and wind energy, we would be better off. And they're working on that. A lot of your energy companies right now are paying you dividends for putting solar panels on your house. It costs a lot to put it up there, but eventually the cost will balance out because you'll have a lower electric bill on the other side, and it'll use natural energy. And so they're working on that. Windmills, again, wind is free, but it costs to make the windmill. And not all areas of the country have enough wind in order to generate the energy, but they are working on that. Um, so that's a true statement. So thank you, Isaiah, for sharing that. All right, let's look at the next one. Burning wood does not involve which of the types of energy? So think about if you have a fireplace or your barbecue pit. If you're burning wood, what are you not getting from this? All right, the wood itself is a living thing or was a living thing before you chopped it down. And it means that it's has chemical energy stored in it. There are little molecules inside holding that wood together so that when you burn the wood, you are breaking the bonds of those chemical energies and you're releasing energy through that. This is where you're going to get your, so the next thing here, this is where you're going to get your thermal energy because it's being released when you break the bonds of the chemicals that are stored in the wood. And then when you burn it, it lights up. So you're going to get light energy, which can also, this energy can be enough to run a generator, turn a turbine, and you can get electrical energy out of that as well. So the only thing you're not going to get, how are you not going to get nuclear energy? You can create, the wood can create enough thermal energy to give you electrical energy. And it should say that you're not going to get nuclear energy unless they're saying that the nuclear energy is the atoms that are in. I disagree with this. This question is misleading. The nuclear energy in the forms of the atoms that are in the wood, I guess that's how they're looking at it. But you can use this to get electricity. It's not going to get electricity just by burning the wood. I get that. All right. Why do coal burning plants, nuclear power plants, and renewable resource use a turbine to produce the energy? Is the most efficient method all right. Every power plant has a turbine in it. So it's going to use whatever the fuel source is to turn a turbine, because the turbine is the actual thing that turns the generator that makes the electricity. Okay, so this is And we'll look at models of the different, but if you look at every model of a power plant, doesn't matter what the energy source was, it's going to be used to probably to heat steam, which steam turns the turbine, which create runs the generator that makes the electricity. Even with um, waterfalls, hydroelectric, you take out a few things, but the water is falling on a turbine, and the turbine turns the generator. So even the simplest of things, a windmill, it's got a little motor inside, but the motor itself is a generator. So you can say that the blades are your turbine, which runs the generator, which makes the electricity. So all of them have some type of turbine, which generates the electricity. Which of the following stores chemical energy? Everything. All of the all of these can you can break a water molecule. That has one. I told you when you burn wood, I don't understand why this is not all of the above. Okay, stores. Imagine if we could make turbines strong enough. How about that? Like we're having storms now. During hurricane seasons, it would be good to have turbines that could store all of that hurricane energy. This is true. This is true. That's a good point. All right, which is a renewable source. All right, so again, renewable means that you can um, generate it again. That's the only one that comes time that we're not digging up out of the ground, and it's unlimited. Hmm. I wonder if they've thought about harnessing the energy from storms like that. Isaiah, that's an interesting question. All right, which energy that fuels our bodies? All right, again, you need to remember that the ATP molecule is our energy molecule. Thank you, Jayla. All righty, so that's that. Okay, so looking at this review, you need to know that there are different ways that humans get energy, and fuel used to generate comes in three major forms. Thermal energy, which is used to not only your body generates thermal energy, that's what keeps you warm, as well as factories and other things that generate energy to keep things warm. Mechanical energy is anything that moves, so machinery, but when you move, you're walking and talking and all the things that create movement in you, that's mechanical energy. It requires that you supply it with a source. And then electrical energy. Okay, you need to know what is non-renewable and what is renewable. All right. Okay, any questions about that? Okay. All right, so let's look at this graph. So I'm gonna, okay, there you go, because it wasn't doing it for me just a minute ago. All right, so I need to back up and restart this for me. Okay, so what I want you to do is just what it says, go through, draw this as a pie so that you know the percentages. You don't have to do the tower, but draw the pie so that you know what the total energies consumption is. And by consumption is this is what we use it for. So we use it for we use petroleum, we use natural gas, we use renewable energy, nuclear energy, and coal. These are the types of energies that we consume. All right. After you've written those types, go ahead and click on each one so that you can read each paragraph. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to do that. Okay. So read through each of those, the pros and cons. When you finish reading that one, it'll take you back to the pie. And then you can click on the next one and do the same thing. All right, so take the next, take the rest of the class to go through and read these. So draw the pie, click on each section, read each part, look at how we're using it, problems with using it, pros and cons, and you're looking at a comparison of the pros and cons, and then it takes you back. All right, so I'm going to let you have some time to do that. Now I started with natural gas. You can start anywhere on the puzzle. It's okay. But I will point out that the bar graph piece is an enlarging of the renewable energy. So the 11% of renewable energy, they've enlarged that to show you that that's coming from geothermal, from wind, from biomass, from biofuels, wood, and hydroelectric. Okay, so that all of that technically is that 11% of the pie. All right, I'm going to stop talking and let you go through and read those sections. All right, y'all need to stay on camera. A couple of y'all went off camera. Maya, you there? Again, folks, I shouldn't be looking at your ceiling. Okay, I'm looking at Go Guardian, and a lot of you are looking at me, but you're not looking at any part of that puzzle, that pie. Everybody should be looking at the pie and taking notes on what each section of that pie is doing. All right, so I got a couple of people who are idle. So when I do this quiz on Wednesday, they're not gonna know what I was talking about. Okay, a couple of people have been off task. What you're supposed to be doing is going through this pie and you're clicking on each one so that it brings up, it's probably, I don't know what this one, I guess this one already has its information enlarged for you. So that one won't click, but the others will click. When you click on them, you should be reading. So I should see, while I'm looking at Go Guardian, I should see everybody flipping through all of these because you need to read these. I'm going to pull quiz questions out of these things. So you need to be reading them. Okay. How we use it, the problems with using it, the pros and cons. And they have summarized, each one, they've summarized the pros and cons of using each one for you. And then it brings you back to the pie. And then you pick the next one. You click more information. You're looking at that, how we use it, problems with using it, pros and cons of using it. Everybody should be doing this right now, going through and reading each of these. I'm clicking through, but I'm just showing you what you should be doing and what you are responsible for knowing. Finally. Okay. One of the things with the section underneath, it also is just an enlargement of the pieces of the puzzle pie, pieces of the pie above. So you go through this slide presentation, it basically repeats what each of the puzzle pieces was telling you. It goes through how we use it, what are we using it for, the pros and cons. Then it goes natural gas, what it is, how we use it, pros and cons, coal, and so on. So that's what this slide shows is the same presentation as if you clicked on each of these up here. Okay. All right. So if that was too tiny for you, here it is enlarged for you. All right, so when we come back, we'll look on Wednesday, we'll look at this and we will probably, so if you want to, you can practice this section right here because that's going to be the little quiz that you take on Wednesday. Okay, so hopefully you read each section and I will see you all on Wednesday. Have a great day.
Have a great day.
Thank you, you too.